Morning, everyone. You know, selfishness is not generally regarded as a positive character trait. And so you might be surprised to hear that I am a Christian, a Catholic, for primarily selfish reasons. Now, I was born into a Catholic family. I was baptized as an infant, raised Catholic. I was an altar server when I was a boy. Went to Catholic elementary and high school. I was confirmed as a teenager. But after high school, I strayed from the faith. Now, for you young people here, I do not recommend that. It's not a good idea. I spent most of my 20s away from the church, and I had an overwhelming, palpable sense that there was something missing in my life. Something was wrong. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what it was, but somehow the obvious truth evaded me in those years. So I had convinced myself that church was boring, it was irrelevant, that it took up too much time. I guess my schedule was so full that I didn't have time to carve out an hour a week for God. And so I strayed from the church in those years for selfish reasons. And of course I was denying myself that personal encounter with Jesus Christ that comes in Holy Communion. I was denying myself the sacrament of reconciliation when the Lord Jesus himself forgives my sins. I was denying myself an opportunity to be a part of a community of faith. And then when I was 28 years old, my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And naturally, I visited him often. And I was amazed and inspired, particularly at the end of his life, with the grace, the dignity, the courage, and the peace that he had in the face of the most dire circumstance that one could encounter. And as I talked to him about that, I came to understand that the source of that grace, that courage and dignity, that peace, was a lifelong relationship with Jesus Christ. And for Dad, the touchstone of that relationship was the Catholic Church. And so I remember thinking, someday I'm going to be where he is, facing my own mortality. And when that day comes, I want what Dad has. I want that grace, courage, and dignity, that peace that he had that comes only from a relationship with Christ. And so I returned to the church for primarily selfish reasons. I think it's ironic that my reasons for straying from the church after high school and my reasons for returning to church in my late 20s were selfish both times. So I like to think that I have evolved, and that now my reasons for staying in the church are much more profound and theological. But if I'm truly honest with myself, there's selfishness in staying as well. In the gospel passage that we just heard, Jesus is at a banquet, and he notices people choosing the places of honor. And they're doing this for selfish reasons. Not surprisingly, Jesus advises against this and says, no, it's better to take the lower place, the lowest place, and then, when you do that, the host will invite you up to a more prestigious place. And you will enjoy the esteem of all your companions at the table. Now, I don't know about you, but it seems to me that desire for the esteem of your companions hints just a little bit at selfishness too. And then Jesus advises the host, rather than invite your wealthy neighbors who can repay you, who can reciprocate, invite the poor, the lame, the crippled, the blind, who cannot reciprocate, cannot repay. And that way, Jesus says, you will receive your repayment at the resurrection of the righteous. In other words, there is an eternal reward for hospitality shown to those in need. Now, is seeking that eternal reward selfish in any way? One might make the argument that there is selfishness in that. And that's why I'm here. That's why I remain faithful in the church to the best of my ability, is because I want that eternal reward. I want to go to heaven. Not today, I'm not in a rush, but I want to get there eventually. I want to participate in that resurrection of the righteous. But any sentence that begins with the words "I want" has at its core a selfish motivation. In my post-high school years, my selfish motivation to stray from the church was, I want to do anything with my time other than go to church. In my late 20s, when I returned, my selfish motivation was, I want the peace at the end of my life that I saw that. Today, my selfish motivation for remaining is I want my eternal reward in heaven. And so we can see that selfish motivation can send us away from God. It can draw us towards us, closer to God. And one barometer to see whether our selfish motivation draws us toward God or away from God is the immediacy of the desire. For those guests at the banquet who chose the places of honor, they did so because they want that immediate gratification of being recognized as an important, prestigious guest. Those who choose the lower place do so because they want that ultimate reward that comes later for the upgrade, if you will, being brought up to a higher position. The host who invites his wealthy neighbors does so because he wants that immediate gratification of an invitation in return, his repayment. But the one who invites those in need who cannot reciprocate does so because he wants that eternal reward that comes in the next life. And so I admit it. I am a Christian for primarily selfish reasons. But that comes with a little bit of responsibility, too. Because if I am a Christian, then I have to act like a Christian. I need to treat others as Christ would to the best of my ability. I need to seek out those in need and help them when I can. I need to treat all people with love, compassion, and mercy at all times. But you know, there's actually an immediate benefit to that as well, because let's face it, it feels good to do good. And this morning, as we gather around the table of the Eucharist to partake of the most sacred meal, it's appropriate for us to pause for a moment and kind of take stock of our selfish motivations. May we minimize those selfish motivations that bring us away from God and accentuate those selfish motivations that draw us closer to God. May we seek that eternal reward that comes from showing hospitality to those in need.